Alright, so we're going to talk about imagination today. And the reason I say this is because I realize that imagination is very important to one of my equations of reality. Okay, so imagination, it's a noun. The faculty or action of forming new ideas or images or concepts of external objects not present to the senses. Okay, so she'd never been blessed with a vivid imagination. Imaginative faculty, or it's not faculty, or then there's creative power. I bet there's creative thinking. Yeah, so all this right here says the ability to the mind to be creative or resourceful. Technology gives workers a chance to use their imagination, creativity, imaginativeness, creativeness, vision, inspiration, sight, invention, resourcefulness, initiative, ingenuity, enterprise, originality, innovation. I'm looking at all these words and I'm trying to make sure that cleverness, wit, genius, flair, all of this is connected to imagination, right? Okay, so the reason I bring this up, now that we're all on the same page, is because in our imagination, we find many of the things that we see in reality. Okay? So imagine just for a second, like I just now said. You see, I said imagine, right? It doesn't matter what word I use. You're going to use your imagination to think about it while you're awake and conscious. So you're not, just imagine this for a second. See, I just said it again. I'm sitting up here telling you to imagine something when I should not have to tell you that anyway, because you're already imagining it. Right? People's like, right. So, and the reason I'm saying people's like, right, because I know that you're going to agree with me on the imagination because you have an imagination. And in your imagination, you have your free will, you have your secrets, you have everything in your imagination, right? Now, if it's in your imagination, and that's where you can see it and you can imagine it, when does it work? Does it work while you're sleeping, or does it work while you're awake, or is it both? Do you have to be conscious or unconscious to imagine or have imagination? Well, of course, many of you are going to be like, well, when I go to sleep when I go to sleep, I'm unconscious, and that's where I have dreams, and my dreams must be in my imagination. Well, hold on. If you're asleep, how can you use your imagination if you're asleep? You're not going to be able to use it. You're sleeping. But if you're awake, you can use your imagination because it's creativity, wit, everything. Think about all the other things I just read off here. If you're asleep, right? See, if you're sleeping, and while you're asleep, are you going to be fancy, interest, fascination, attention, passion, curiosity, preoccupation? And most of you say yes. That means that you can use your imagination while you're asleep. Right? People say, right. So when you're sleeping and you're dreaming, you're using your imagination, correct? People say, correct. Okay. So now, when you're awake and you're using your imagination, are you conscious or unconscious? Are you awake or are you asleep? Most of you would say, what? You're awake. But you can access the imagination, the same one that you use when you're asleep, to produce creativity, imaginativeness, creativeness, vision, inspiration, insight, inventiveness, invention, resourcefulness. So while you're awake and while you're asleep, you can do these things. When you're sleeping, what are you accessing? You can't be accessing vision because your eyes are closed. You can't be accessing sound because you're asleep. What are you listening for? You can't be accessing food because your mouth is being used for breathing patterns, like snoring. Some people, when they're sleeping, you can try to shake them awake and they won't wake up. They will literally just fix themselves a different way and fall asleep, right? Because they're accessing their imagination of what they want, what they need, how to get it. Almost like it's like a simulation. So this means when you're sleeping, you're in a simulation, but when you're awake, what are you in? Are you in the simulation when you're, the same one that you were in when you were sleeping? Or are you in reality, a physical world where you can access your imagination, which is not a physical world? What is that imagination? Where did it come from? How did it get here? Did the imagination get here by math? Physics? Did it get here from learned behavior? It couldn't have got here through learned behavior because you're asleep. And imagine trying to get someone's attention and trying to get them to do something while they're asleep. Like, try to get somebody to, they can't. Some of them might, but more than likely, if they're asleep, either they're going to try to fight you off of them, or they're just going to do what you told them to do because they were asleep anyway, right? People's like, right. So that means that the imagination comes from sleep deprivation. So sleep deprivation, it causes people to be pulled in. It goes into their imagination of what they want, what they wanted to do, but they couldn't do. And they used up all their electricity in their body to do it. So they become just a body walking by itself. There's no electricity in them. They're building up it's a perpetual motion machine. Now we're talking, right? So now we go from the imagination, which is caused by sleep deprivation, right? And this sleep deprivation is believe it or not, it's perpetual motion. So reality is literally perpetual. We're living the reality of perpetual motion. So whatever perpetual motion's reality is what we make it. I don't know. I give you a better example of perpetual motion and why I did this for a second. Give me a second here. So I'll show you what perpetual motion is. When I built this website, remember this one? Okay. Imagine this is reality right here. See it all moving around? Everything's happening around it. See the reality? The perpetual motion of it, the imagination. Imagination is in perpetual motion. So
per, perpetual M, perpetual motion.
Okay. Now, the word perpetual motion is not on here yet. Okay? So, let me show you what reality is. You see how it's not on there?
You added the keyword perpetual motion.
You see how it appeared? That's reality. Reality is the momentum of perpetual motion. So when I'm swinging this rope with a ball on the end of it, and you can only just see the ball in one place, and you can only see that you probably can't see the string because I'm moving too fast. But you can see the outline of the ball right there. That's the momentum of where light slowed down to pick up momentum. So everything right in front of you is where everything slowed down for 1 second to pick up momentum again. And then when it gets to you, it stops. Whatever you think of in your imagination, it's in perpetual motion. So this means that it would appear right there in front of you. So when you go to sleep and you're in your imagination, it starts up this perpetual motion machine. And whatever you think of, it's going to try to create in front of you that you can't have in reality. Or what you can and can't have. It's going to try to see what you can and cannot do from before. Because you were told, no, you can't do this and no, you can't do that. So he's got to try something different, something that works and something that does make it work. It's in perpetual motion. So when you search for it, it searches for it, it looks for an answer. When it gives you back the answer, it creates the perpetual motion, a momentum right there. You see the momentum? It picked it up. It shadowed it. So you know how a shadow works? There's the object itself, that's where momentum picks up, and then it drops. It picks up momentum and takes it away. And then the shadow is another form of perpetual motion, and then everything else is all perpetual motion with it. That perpetual motion, after a while, is what does it all. It creates this world of imagination. It's where whatever you're trying to look at is created. Now, what was interesting about that was when I began to look at where the imagination comes from and how does it get there. The reason I say that it's when momentum slows down and picks back up is because if you look at how everything is built, you can see where it gains momentum in some spots. If you look at all of those things that are there, those grooves, that's where it picks up momentum and moves really fast in front of itself. Where it's done it a lot of times. It already done that before and it didn't work type thing. So when you look at these specific places that are imprinted in everything, that's because it's tried that already. It already knows what the answer is, and it answers it for you before you get there, meaning it's a shadow, because our shadow is literally invisible. Whenever there's no light, the shadow is literally invisible. And it's in perpetual motion. Everything's in perpetual motion. Light's in perpetual motion. Everything that we're doing is in perpetual. Right now, as I'm scrolling through pictures to show you, it's in perpetual motion. And what's interesting about... Hold on real fast. I'll just put it on one picture and just leave it there. Um, yeah, that'd be a cool picture. Right, it looks like the planet is on top overhead. Right, so in our imagination, right, imagine for 1 second just the reality of it. What is the imagination made of? And I think I know what it's made of. I know what I'm looking for, and I want to show you why. I spelled it wrong anyway. Okay, so in magnetic braking, right, magnets are like really slowed down. And, matter of fact, why am I going to just go back here to the definitions? That way I can just get it to the point. Okay, so when a magnet is heading toward the copper plate, what you call a phenomenon happens. The magnet slows down, and it slows down so slow, it's almost like it was thinking, right? And I believe that that's what it was doing. It was thinking of a number. It was thinking of something different. Then it was like, whoa, what is this? I'm not going to land on this. It might destroy me. And I'm going to tell you why, okay? When a magnet is just about to hit the copper, I can see what the magnet is thinking, and I know what it's thinking. It's thinking I won't be able to get out of it if it surrounds around me like a ball. Okay, so this copper sphere, if it did, it would have trapped the magnet in it. And that copper would have had the magnet bouncing around in it. And I want to teach you something about copper. If a magnet is inside of a copper ball, it can't get out. It's going to keep on making dents in that copper. It's going to make so many dents inside of that copper if it's trying to get to other magnets that you would probably end up with a dark place that's cold because it's copper, that conducts electricity, creates an atmosphere, evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and perpetual motion. This thing would become a perpetual motion machine. And depending on how much copper is produced on the outside of it, will depend on whether or not your universe holds together. Because who knows how big this universe is so far, but if it has enough copper, it will keep us inside of that copper sphere, and everything does not fall all together. If you look at it, that's exactly what it looks like. And what's interesting about it is that I knew it had to be that, because when you mix copper and magnet together, and don't do it, okay? Leave it to the professionals to show you in videos that only. When you are looking at when you're observing these two objects have something in common, and then they don't. There's other things that go into this in order for it to stay stable besides just core. But when you do put these magnets into place and you allow them to go around each other, so a magnet inside of a copper core with a magnet on the outside facing toward it, which would be the moon, spinning around it, would conduct electricity, which would just look like a magnetic ball, which would be the sun. Because when it starts spinning around itself, it would create a ball in front of it. That's probably where we get light bulbs from. And then it would create an atmosphere because it's producing cold, which is ice. It's going to produce ice out of it. The ice melts down. That creates another perpetual motion machine variable, because now the ice turns to water. It drips down to the center of it where the magnet is rotating on the inside of it because of the magnet on the outside of it. The core is made of, yeah, I can see where the ice maker would have been making ice in two different directions, the South Pole and North Pole. The atmosphere would keep it support. It would support what do you call an atmosphere strong enough to withstand heat rays. So I bet you that's ice. People's like, that's clear ice. Yes, our atmosphere would be made of clear ice. It had to be clear ice. And that's why we can see straight through it, but we ain't falling off the planet a certain way. Think about it. When you look up, you're actually looking down. I don't know how many people we're looking up. No, you're looking down. That's really fucking far away, and we're upside down. Yeah, for people, we're not upside down. Yeah, we are upside down. That's why I didn't like coming out. When I was a kid, I didn't like coming out outside. People's like, why not? The reason I ain't like coming outside is because when you look up, that shit looks down. It doesn't look like it's up to me. And that's when I was a kid. Now that I'm older, I'm just like, okay, I got a little more education, but I ain't fucking stupid. But that's what we're looking at here with the imagination. Let's scroll back here. And that is the imagination. Look at that. Look at what the imagination can be. Look at all those things. Where it comes from, what's it made of. The imagination was probably made of magnetism and copper, because it slows it down enough for it to think before it lands on it.